We are back with another mock draft here on the channel. Sorry it's a little bit late. I had to head back home to New Jersey for a bit of a family thing, but I'm back now. We're ready to go. No trades in this one, but it is a trade deadline edition. The New York Jets trade Sauce Gardner to the Colts. They pick up the Colts' first-round pick, currently projected to be number 32 overall. And let's go ahead and get into it. I'll explain each pick as I go through. Some will need more explanation than others, but I tweeted this out. Twitter.com/Bengal YouTube. You can give me feedback on there if you'd like. But we're going to kick things off with the Titans at number 1. So, in a world without trades, this is what we're going to do. Arvell Reese, as it's been trending, is the best player in the draft. Plain and simple. I also think he's a great fit for the Tennessee defense, but things may change in 2026. Either way, it doesn't especially matter because Reese is a scheme-versatile player. He is an outside linebacker that can play inside. He's an edge rusher that can play off ball. He's everything. Now, why would a player like this go number 1 overall? Because he's not really a true linebacker. This isn't, your Mike linebacker going number 1 overall. You just don't see that, and you won't see that maybe ever. But Arvell Reese has a great ability to rush the passer. In my opinion, he is far and away the best player in the draft. I don't have any questions about him. I really don't. He's got good size. He's an incredible athlete. He's got great recognition ability when he's playing off the ball. And his ability to shed blocks is really as good as I've ever seen from a linebacker prospect. I think he's an incredible player. Incredible. I think you take Jalen Walker as a prospect last year, who was a very good prospect, and you level him up with Arvell Reese. Not that he's on a different planet as an athlete, but it's the technical side where he truly elevates. He's got to be the number 1 overall pick in a world without trades, but I think Tennessee could end up trading down in the future. We might experiment with a trade deadline or post-trade deadline mock with trades next week, so stay tuned for that. And now we get to the Saints at number 2. The Saints are in an interesting spot because where I don't necessarily think they should take a QB, because Spencer Rattler was playing well, and now Tyler Shuck in his first real action looked pretty good, right? Now, I just think the Saints have far more issues than just a quarterback, but at the same time, we'll talk about the Browns in a minute. They're in a similar spot, maybe. If you're picking at number 2 in the draft and you have a chance to take an actual franchise-level quarterback, I think the Saints could absolutely choose to go in that direction. So I don't think they're absolutely locked into a quarterback here. And again, I think this is another team that could trade down. If you can take the first quarterback off the board, which I still believe to be Fernando Mendoza, I think the Saints may opt to do that. I don't think Spencer Rattler a few years ago or Tyler Shuck, pick outside the first round last year would stop you from upgrading long-term at the quarterback position if you think Mendoza is, or Ty Simpson or Dante Moore, who we'll talk about when that time comes. If you think Mendoza or any of those QBs are a cut above what you currently have, this is the most important position in football. If you have a top 2 pick and you're considering a quarterback, I can see the Saints pulling the trigger. It doesn't mean they're locked into that, but it's certainly a strong possibility in my opinion. We'll talk more about it when we get to the Browns, I think. But the Giants at 3, I'm going to go Carnell Tate. And I love Jordan Tyson as a player. We'll, again, talk about him when the time comes. But I think Carnell Tate might be the cleanest NFL prospect at receiver this year. And that's when you factor in height, weight, speed, route running ability, injury history especially. I think Tate is just a very clean prospect overall. Obviously has the former great prospect status coming out of high school and has steadily improved over his collegiate career. He's a great player. I think the Giants could absolutely use an upgrade at wide receiver. Neighbors, of course, is great when healthy. We don't know how he's going to come back from the ACL tear, right? And I think that even with Malik Neighbors, you could absolutely choose to upgrade with Carnell Tate. I just don't see really many other options here. Peter Woods, I think, would be in play, but he just hasn't been amazing in 2025. Caleb Downs is an amazing player, but a safety at 3, we just don't see it. The Browns at 4, and we're going to go Ty Simpson. I get a lot of pushback anytime I have the Browns taking a QB. Oh, they just took 2 QBs last year. I don't know why that would matter. I don't know why, because Dylan Gabriel's awful. And I think Browns fans mostly agree with that. You should. And I don't want to be so mean, but he's got legitimately no upside as a player. Could you win with him? You really could win hypothetically with any quarterback if the situation around him is good enough, sure. But he basically has no upside as a player. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. And then Shedeur Sanders, the team won't even let us see what he has, right? And it's a 5th round draft pick. So, it is not like he had incredible upside anyway. Although I still think he's got the tools to be a solid starter in the NFL. You know, I think there's a chance that you can win with Shedeur Sanders if he's able to develop. I still think the immaturity may hold him back. It's like constantly something with him, and it's a bit of a weird spot. And the accuracy was good in college, but this was not a perfect prospect. I would be okay with letting Shedeur develop for a little while, but I don't think that prohibits you from taking arguably the best quarterback in the draft at number 4 overall. This is a team that could absolutely use a quarterback. And I know everyone's thinking about early season Browns that had Flacco and Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson and Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And then there were 3. And then there were 2. And that's Sanders and Gabriel. And Dylan Gabriel's not the guy. So it's really, and then there was 1, but there was really only half of 1because we don't know about Shedeur Sanders at all. If Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in the draft, and he may be, you're going to take him at number 4 overall if he's available. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, or the idea of Shedeur Sanders, would not stop you from taking your QB of the future. It just would not. Jets at number 5, they're in another situation where they also could take a quarterback. However, there have been some good points made that the Jets are not a quarterback away necessarily, although I find their offense to look quite good for the future. I think you've got, when healthy, a lot of great pieces on that O-line. I think you're already happy with the returns of Olu Fashanu and Armand Membu, the 2 young tackles. When healthy, Elijah Vera-Tucker, I think, is a very good player. I think Joe Tippmann can be a very solid player. Ultimately, I would imagine your center. And then John Simpson is a good vet to have in there, a solid starter currently at left guard, but I think is a free agent, so can't necessarily count on him being back. And that's the deal with some of these mock drafts too. You got to be aware of the contracts, and if they're not under contract, the team could not re-sign them and try to get their replacement, you know, so we got to prepare for that as well. But at the same time, even though I think the Jets have a great offensive line for the future in place, obviously some development needs to happen. Mason Taylor, I think, is a high draft pick tight end that I liked coming out of college that I think could end up being a solid starter. Garrett Wilson is a wide receiver 1 type of player. You do need more at the position, but the Jets have 3 first-round picks next year in what is potentially a better quarterback class. We say that every year, and then something happens where it's not. But I don't know that the Jets absolutely need to take a QB here. You have 3 first-round picks next year. That's either you're in position for a top quarterback by default because you're the Jets and you're terrible, or you have the ammo to move up for a top quarterback. So this does not need to be a QB. Although I think, again, the situation for a young quarterback to come in does look like it could be pretty good. Obviously, you know, play caller and quarterback coach and all these things will really greatly determine how good that QB ends up being, but the personnel, the roster, seems pretty good on the offensive side of the ball for the future. You're counting on development, but you could use more. And if you're going with the let's wait on a QB, why not try to improve the situation as much as possible? That's what we're going to do. We're going to go Jordan Tyson, and I'll tell you, he's probably the best receiver in the draft. Probably is. Jordan Tyson, though, has a long list of injuries over his collegiate career, And it's legitimately concerning for me. I'm not an NFL team. They might feel differently, but when you deal with a guy who, has torn his ACL in the past and has broken his collarbone and is currently dealing with a hamstring injury that has sidelined him the past few games for Arizona State. Like, the injuries, it's kind of one every year, a major one. He sat out an entire season coming back from that torn ACL, I believe, in 2023. So, even though I think the player is incredible, I think the injuries may end up pushing him down the board quite significantly. It could happen, and that doesn't necessarily mean out of the first round, but it could mean outside of the top 10. Today, I have him going at number 5. He may never have an injury or a significant injury in the NFL. That's a possibility. It's kind of interesting the way these things happen where, a player could be injury prone until they're not, right? And then they're just great. Or they're injury prone and they kind of never are not. It's really a coin flip, but much of the NFL draft is. The Jets take a chance on a very talented player here. And if you look at the team we talked about and then add in a 2027 quarterback, maybe Julian Sayin from Ohio State, who's been incredible this year, you might be cooking if you're the Jets. But they don't force themselves into a quarterback with the first 2 off the board, top 2 off the board. And they go with a receiver, Jordan Tyson. As we get to the Raiders at number 6, I'm going Dante Moore. Could absolutely go back to college. And there are reports that he's going to lean towards going back to school. But if you're in play to be one of the first QBs off the board, there are going to be some teams that have him as QB1, QB2 in this draft. I don't know how easy it's going to be if you are going to go in the top 10 to turn down all that money and go back to school. And we've seen players recently go back to school, and it's not necessarily the right decision. Was Garrett Nussmeier not trending towards a first-round pick last year? Maybe even Drew Aller. It was a weaker QB class, and those guys could have been first-rounders. They went back to school, and, Nussmeier is not going to be a first-rounder. There's no chance at this point. Maybe not even a day 2 pick. We'll see. And, Drew Aller, kind of the same deal, right? He's got tools, really big arm, but man, I don't know. That is a coin flip on Drew Aller. It's a real dart throw, and sometimes that works. But anyway, to my point, Dante Moore, I could absolutely see declaring, and in a world where these guys have not yet decided to return to school or not, I'm gonna throw them in the first round because they are draft eligible players, and I think it'd be crazy to go and say, hey, I'm not going to include them in my mock drafts because they could go back to school. Yeah, a lot of players could, but until they do, we're going to have them in these. And Dante Moore would definitely be an upgrade at quarterback long-term. You're hoping over Geno Smith, who just really has been not very good this year. The situation is also not good, right? But the Raiders need a quarterback. After trading Jacoby Myers, they also need a receiver. They need help on the offensive line in a big way. The only thing on offense they don't really need is tight end and running back. Left tackle, I would say as well. But you got a lot of upgradable positions. And, I like Jackson Powers Johnson too. But, yeah, you got a lot of needs if you're the Raiders. And don't even get me started on the defense side of the ball. But we're going with their QB of the future here, Dante Moore. Okay, a lot of housekeeping things out of the way. And we should be kind of more streamlined from this point forward. We're going to keep Ruben Bain in Miami. He's, one of the best players in the draft. And, there have been times this year where he's looked like the best player in college football. I think he's going to end up being a top 10 pick. The Dolphins have a lot of areas of need, but you want to marry those, positional needs with true talent in the draft. And I think this actually is a great match in Miami. Ruben Bain gets to stay in Miami. And you look at the Dolphins, and you can't count on Chubb for the future. You traded away Jalen Phillips. I think Bain makes a ton of sense. Commanders at 8. I like the idea of Caleb Downs, and I know Commanders fans are going to want Caleb Downs here. But I also think for the same reason that Bain goes at number 7, you could see a guy like Keldrick Falk go at number 8. And I know everyone's going to want Caleb Downs because it's the big name. We don't see a lot of safeties go top 10. We certainly don't see safeties go top 5. It's happened twice in the past 20 or so years. It just doesn't really happen. And we have to be aware of that when we're doing mock drafts predictive mock drafts about how NFL teams draft, it's going to be rare for a safety to go top 10. Now, it can happen. It does happen. And I think Caleb Downs has a really good argument to be a top 10 pick. But if you think Falk is going to be more impactful because of not only the position he plays, but because of how, that position can impact the game and where you would rank him maybe on an overall big board, I could see the edge being valued over the safety. And I'll put numbers on it to make it a little bit, easier to understand here. Caleb Downs, if he's a 7, right? And Keldrick Falk is a 6.5, the positional value could bump Falk up to like a 7.2 and Downs maybe down to a 6.8 or a 7. These teams really value the more valuable positions. And, we talked about the pyramid before on the channel where you have quarterback at the top, and then the next tier down, you have like edge and offensive tackle. And then you have, those next positions that are kind of very close to tier 2, in my opinion. You could probably even throw some of them in there, like corner, wide receiver, interior defensive line. We see those positions get drafted higher than any others, and that stuff matters. Falk's a great player. Would like to see a bit more of him as a pass rusher, but I think he offers you a really high ceiling as a run defender. And I see the Commanders team. They really need to improve their pass rush. I also think they need to improve their secondary, obviously, but they may just prefer the really talented defensive lineman over the really talented safety. Even if Caleb Downs might be a better overall player, Falk might be more valuable to the Commanders. With that being said, now that Falk is off the board, I am going to keep Caleb Downs in the state of Ohio and get him to the Bengals. He's so good, and we're seeing him, play a little bit more single high. This is not maybe going to be your center fielder, and that's kind of where his value gets dropped slightly as well, where this might just be a really good strong safety who's going to be awesome in the box, but may not have the versatility to play regularly over the top. He's so instinctive. He's so talented. I love Caleb Downs as a player. He's, in my opinion, the best safety prospect we've seen, at least since Kyle Hamilton, but maybe even before that. I think I'm going to be higher on Downs as a player than I was on Kyle Hamilton, who has been a great pro. And I think that's going to do a lot for Downs' draft stock. Hamilton went around 14, and I think Downs could get pushed inside the top 10. Again, he's a great player. The Bengals need help everywhere, but could certainly upgrade their defense on the back end. It's just, again, it's a positional value conversation. Some are going to say, well, you said he couldn't go at 8, but he could go at 9. He could totally go at 8. Right? But I think based on the talent of edge rusher in this class, we could see a rise from David Bailey for sure. But I think Falk might be more valued compared to Caleb Downs by some NFL teams. Maybe not all, right? But again, Downs, great player, and could be a big upgrade in the back end of the defense for Cincinnati. Rams at number 10, going Spencer Fano. Fano is in play to be the first tackle off the board, but I've got to tell you guys, and I've been saying this for a while, this is really not a great tackle class. Tackle is one of the most valuable positions in football, so you may see some get overdrafted, maybe going higher than they should relative to talent or relative to ability that we've seen. And you might see some go in the first round, even at the back end, that maybe are not first round talents, and we see that sometimes. But Fano's in play to be the first off the board. We see a lot of tackles go high in the draft nowadays, and it seems like, the first one off the board at 10, that's not, that's not what we usually see. I feel like we're seeing these guys go higher and higher and higher, and we've seen tackles be the first overall pick, but here, Fano's just not on the same level as some of the tackles we've seen in drafts previous. He's not Joe Alt, right? Really good athlete, though. Rams, I think, are looking for a starting right tackle. Rob Havenstein may end up retiring. I don't think you have the long-term stability at right tackle, and I think Fano is a plug-and-play type of player. It'll be a really good fit in the Sean McVay offense as well. So I think this is just a good fit for LA. You might end up reaching on a quarterback here like Lenora Sellers, who I think is good. We'll talk about him later, but the situation has done him no favors. Another player I think will return back to school, but until he does, I may have him appear in some mock drafts. Cardinals at 11. I'm going Francis Maui Noah. I think he's been about the best offensive lineman of the draft eligible players in college football this year. A lot see him as a guard, but that could be a fit here in Arizona, right? Again, it's a really valuable position. I think you try him at right tackle until he proves he can't do that, and then you might have a plus guard. But the Cardinals need to upgrade their O-line, and I think Maui Noah is a good option for that. As we get to the Cowboys at 12, I had Mansour Delane here, but I tweeted out Mansour Delane as the Cowboys pick, and I think corner is a need for them because I don't know that Trayvon Diggs will be on the roster next year. He may be, but it's not a given in my opinion. You do have some other options. Maybe Savone Revel ends up being healthy and becomes a good starter for you. But I also think they really could improve their pass rush. And David Bailey is a name that continues to rise. He's a special pass rusher, and those guys go fairly high. The only thing against him, he's not like super big, but the arms are reportedly, like 34 plus inches supposedly, and that's a pretty good length, and I think teams are going to value that. Get to keep him in state. He's been about as good as any defensive player in college football this year, and you can say that for a few guys, like, Arvell Reese, Reuben Bain at times, David Bailey, Caleb Downs. Those guys are all in that conversation. Bailey's been incredible, and I think could be the 12th overall pick to the Dallas Cowboys, who really need to improve their pass rush. Ravens at 13. It's going to complicate things for me a little bit because I've changed now from what I did, and now we got to see what we're going to do. As we get to the Ravens at 13, going Peter Woods. Peter Woods, I think, has really, really good upside. He's a great athlete. He is just a mauler in the trenches sometimes. It's just explosive block shedder. I wanted to see more from him this year. He came in as my number one player. And 2025 just hasn't really been all that I wanted to see out of Peter Woods, unfortunately. But Clemson's been a nightmare, right? So I think some teams may bet on traits. Peter Woods could end up being an easy top 10 pick. Falls a little bit here, and I don't think the Ravens will continue to fall. I don't think they're going to even be picking top 15, but we'll see. Until that happens, they just stick and pick and go with arguably the best player available. Can make a really good argument for this guy, but don't think the Ravens would go with Jeremiah Love at number 13. Woods is an incredible player in theory. 2025 has been a bit disappointing. You think you get him with a good interior defensive line, or just a defensive line coach, and a good interior defensive line kind of around him to eat up some blocks, leave him on an island as a pass rusher with a guard, and you're going to be in trouble if you're playing interior offensive line. Woods is just so athletic. I see the vision here. I just want to see it more consistently, and I think sometimes you got to get the player out of the bad situation, get him to a good one, and then you can really say, oh man, how did this guy fall to this spot? He's such a great player. But it may not have always been that way. Who knows, if he goes to a bad situation, what ends up happening. I just think Clemson's been a disaster this year, and we'll see. You get him in a good spot, maybe you can get an all-pro caliber player, because I think Peter Woods really does have that type of potential. Vikings at 14. Gonna go with Mansour Delane. Delane has played like the best corner of the draft-eligible corners in college football this year, and I think that's a big position of need for Minnesota. I know Vikings fans are probably sick of me mocking a corner, but it's just a need, in my opinion. And there are some other needs, no question. And I do think Jeremiah Love probably ends up as a top 10 pick, and he's still available, and the Vikings could use a running back, but go with a different player here. Yeah, it's just, how does each team value running back? It's tough to say, right? It's tough to get a running back high up the board. So we're going to go with the corner, Mansour Delane. He's got starter potential. He's a good enough athlete and is sticky in man coverage. He's a really good player, and I think the Vikings could appreciate the upgrade. Texans at 15. Going to go Caden Proctor. He hasn't played amazing this year, but he's a good athlete, and he's gigantic, right? So I think there will be some teams that see that and go, we got to have that guy. We can develop him. Think about the player he could become. I just don't think he plays as strong as you'd think for somebody of his size. But again, a good athlete. Some teams are going to see him as a guard. I think with the Texans, you have the bonus, if you want to call it an added bonus, kind of fun, They need different positions on the O-line. Tackle, potentially, especially guard. Wow. He could potentially do both. Maybe not at the same time, though. I could see that being challenging. Panthers at 16. This is where I had David Bailey. And to put a bow on the Texans thing, offensive line bad, protect C.J. Stroud, Caden Proctor. Panthers at 16. I had David Bailey here. David Bailey's no longer available. And you know what? I'm going to switch the picks that I had in a way. And I'm going to go Jermod McCoy here. Again, I'm saying switch from what I posted on Twitter. Jermod McCoy. Why take a corner here? Yeah, I get that the Panthers need to improve their pass rush. Someone told me the reason why the Panthers shouldn't take a corner is because they have J.C. Horn and a good core around him. I don't exactly know what that means because you don't really have a good CB2 or 3. They're not unupgradable, right? They're not. And you need more than one corner. You really need more than 3 corners because those guys get hurt. You can never have enough corners. McCoy is potentially a top 5 player in this draft. Why does he fall? Well, he hasn't played in 2025, and we really don't know if he will. But he was so exceptional in 2024. The player you're looking at from 2024 is a top flight corner, and the Panthers could get a steal here at 16. And having 2 boundary corners of J.C. Horn and Jermod McCoy could be one of the best duos in football. So yes, I understand they need to improve their pass rush, but you also need to try and take the best player available when trying to upgrade your team overall. The best teams don't necessarily draft for need. They draft the best player they can at a position that makes sense, and it's not always the biggest need. There's more than one way to upgrade a position, right? You can trade. You can sign through free agency. You can draft outside of the first round. They do have more picks than just number 16, believe it or not. Jermod McCoy is the pick here. And we'll get to the Chiefs at 17. Arguably the best player in the draft. It's Jeremiah Love. Best offensive player, I would say. He's very, very good. I would say, a near special type of talent. You get the size with the overall athleticism, the game-breaking speed, the ability to affect the game, not just as a runner, but as a receiver. He's great. He's a great, great player. Do the Chiefs end up picking at number 17? I doubt it. Does Jeremiah Love end up going higher than this? I think so. But here in this mock draft, he's available at 17 to a team that needs a running back and would take their offense, I think, up another level. And that's a scary proposition, knowing how good the Chiefs already are, even lacking some talent. This is a nightmare for the rest of the NFL. It may not end up happening. I really don't think it does. But today, in Fantasyland, that's what's happening. 49ers at 18. I'm going to go Quincy Rhodes. TJ Parker really has just not been that great this year. And I like Quincy Rhodes. He's really young. He's like 19 or 20 years old right now. And I think based on his profile, 6'6", 275 with really, really long arms, teams are really going to like that. Now, I know they have Mykel Williams. ACL injury, right? He's done for the year. Bosa, big-time injury. I think he's done for the year, right? So, and I know they're not drafting Quincy Rhodes here in November and getting him for a playoff run. I get that this would be happening in late April. You're likely getting Mykel Williams back. You're likely getting Bosa back. And you have Bryce Huff, but Bryce Huff is not under contract long-term. You can really, again, never have too many pass rushers, similarly to corner. You get a rotation going in there. Yeah, it seems like a high pick for a rotational guy, but you don't know what you're getting, in my opinion, long-term from Bosa. Huff is not guaranteed under contract. And Mykel Williams will be also coming off a major injury, although I think looked great as a rookie so far. Unfortunately, his season's been cut short, but Rhodes has big-time potential, and you can afford to develop him, maybe behind Mykel Williams or Nick Bosa or whatever you have going on. I like him as a player. He is a really, really, really good athlete for his size, and I think the length is going to be coveted by NFL teams, and I think the Niners coveted the length of Mykel Williams, so this might be a player they also like. It's kind of a similar archetype, but could be a really fun duo for years to come. You just worry about the injury situation there with the 49ers edge rushers. I think you could potentially get more in there. And I know they need offensive line help, but who are you taking? On the interior offensive line, You could look to get a guard in Vega Ioane or Chase Besantis potentially, but I don't know that that's the direction they would go at 18. And I'm telling you, there really are not many tackles that I think will be in play that aren't already off the board. Caleb Lomu, maybe at 18. I could see that. Caleb Tiernan could be in the conversation. Maybe Trevor Gooseby. We'll see what happens. Maybe Carter Smith. But for right now, we're going to go with an edge rusher. Someone that I think the 49ers will like, because I've seen them like his archetype, if you will, already. And Quincy Rose is a 49er today. I could also see them going interior defensive line. I could see them going anything on the offensive line. I could see them going wide receiver, but it's an edge rusher today because there just is a lot of uncertainty there for the future. Browns back on the clock at 19. For me, it is Mekhi Lemon every single time. I will mix it up today. And the Browns really could use help on the O-line as well, just like the 49ers. But instead of taking Quincy Rhodes, I will actually have them taking a tackle. And I know people are going to call me a hypocrite because why not just give Caleb Lomu to the 49ers at 18 then? Well, they're different teams with different draft histories, with different needs. It's a mock draft, right? I want to experiment with some different things here. And Caleb Lomu's good. I think has the potential to start at left tackle, obviously, for the Browns. And you just wish his 2025 was as good as it looked coming out of 2024. And it just hasn't been quite to that same level. But tackle is such a valuable position. Again, I think you will see teams potentially overdraft that position. We got Lomu back in the top 20, like I had in my way too early mock draft, if I remember correctly. Steelers at 20 could absolutely use quarterback. There's no question. And I've had them taking Lenore Sellers or Brendan Sorsby before, who unfortunately did not look great against Utah. I'm going to go Mekhi Lemon because wide receiver is a need for Pittsburgh. I know they need QB so badly, but maybe it's not Sorsby or Lenore Sellers at 20, right? So going Mekhi Lemon, great player, kind of fits this mold of the modern day 2025 dominant NFL receiver like a Jackson Smith-Njigba or Amon-Ra St. Brown, somebody that can dominate in the slot, but I think also can play on the outside. Someone that's good after the catch, somebody that can separate a little bit despite being a little bit undersized without exceptional speed, and he's a ball winner in the air despite not being 6'5". He's what? Maybe 6 foot, maybe, but plays like he's 6'2" or 6'3" above the rim. So I love Mekhi Lemon, and I think he's going to end up being a really, really good pro. Kind of like, your Emeka Ibuka archetype, right? Like, you know the type at this point. Slot or Z that is good after the catch, that is physical as hell, and is just a dog. That's what I got for you on Mekhi Lemon. Bills at 21. Going with a receiver here, I'm going Chris Bell, and I think this would be a really, really fun fit in Buffalo. Yes, they have some other needs, and I've given them edge rushers and linebackers and safeties before. I think they could still use an upgrade at receiver because I don't know if they have that guy. You know what I mean? I don't know if that guy exists in Buffalo. Khalil Shakir is a nice player. Keon Coleman, I think if he can develop, could be a good jump ball receiver. He doesn't separate. Chris Bell is really, really fun. He's kind of like a big running back in a lot of ways, but he's got a little bit of nuance to his game as a route runner. He can catch the football. I really like Chris Bell, and I think the Bills would find creative ways to use him. He's not Deebo Samuel, right? But that would be some of the usage that you'd see out of him. He's a big running back that plays receiver, but he's not just that. Like, he can separate a little bit, right? He can get down the field vertically. I think Chris Bell will be a really fun weapon in Buffalo to hopefully unlock this Buffalo offense for Bills fans. At 22, Chicago Bears. Going Caden McDonald. This is one of the worst run defenses in football. Caden McDonald's played great for Ohio State this year on a great defense. He's a big reason why they've been so great. And I think on the interior defensive line for Chicago, I like some of the guys that are there, but Jervon Dexter's not locked down long term. And again, they've just defended the run so poorly. I think McDonald could help you do that. And a player that's elevating could end up being a first-round pick. Bucks at 23. I'm going Sonny Styles. It's like your dream player If you're the Bucks, probably a 23. Styles has freak size and really good overall athleticism. He's playing so great this year. He's one of the best seniors in this draft. And, I mean, how many times can I mock the Bucks a linebacker before they actually do it? Maybe this is actually the year. Styles is fantastic, and the Bucks really need help at linebacker. Even outside of Levante David, they need help. But Levante David is into his mid-30s. You cannot rely on that for the future. You get a first-round pick, 4 years, plus the fifth-year option. If Levante David is even around for 2 of those at this point, I may be surprised. Lions at 24. Gonna go TJ Parker. Think he's kind of got the size that the Lions like over some of these other edge rushers. And, man, he just hasn't been as good as he was last year. But you go back and see who he was dominating, and it wasn't fantastic competition. But, again, this Clemson team in general has just been so poor. I think TJ Parker, maybe put him on a winning team, rotational pass rusher, maybe you get something there. Again, a lot more needs. I just don't see a tackle worth taking here for the Lions at 24. I don't see an interior defensive lineman because Caleb Banks has the injury stuff. We really haven't seen much of him this year. Amari Washington kind of feels redundant to Tyleik Williams that they got last year. Big Citrus as well, right? I don't know. So we're going TJ Parker. Al-Qadim Muhammad is not under contract long-term. This is important. You cannot count on him being back, even if he may be. Right now, I think edge is a position the Lions could look to upgrade long-term. We're not talking about Aiden Hutchinson. You need more than just him. I like Al-Qadim Muhammad. He is not locked in long-term. I think he's a free agent after this year, right? So edge is certainly something they could consider. Will I keep mocking them edge rushers and they will continue to not draft those in the first round after Hutchinson? I'm sure of it. But TJ Parker today. Cowboys back on the board at 25. Had them going David Bailey earlier. And in the mock draft I put on Twitter, I had them going Cassius Howell. But do they take 2 edge rushers in the same draft in the first round? Maybe not, right? So I think your options pretty much come down to, okay, do you want to go something on the interior defensive line? Or do you want to try and think about a corner at this point? We talked about corner as a possibility earlier, and that's what I had on Twitter initially before deciding to give David Bailey the nod. I'm going to go with a big riser. He's had a great year. Let's go Brandon Cease out of South Carolina, or I believe that's how you pronounce that. Absolutely blazing speed. And we've seen the Cowboys go with a South Carolina quarterback or cornerback before. Now, this is not your Israel Mukwamu. Cease has incredible speed, and I think you look at the Cowboys, I don't know that Trayvon Diggs will be on the roster this time next year. Again, it's a possibility, but not a given. Of course, you have some other options like Revel, but I think getting more speed out there and a potential starter could be a good idea for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that secondary needs to be upgraded. Now, could this be like Amari Washington or something to go with a big interior defensive lineman? Maybe, but you traded for Kenny Clark to start the year. You just traded for Quinnen Williams. Maybe you decide to go with a corner instead. Linebacker also a need. Which linebacker will you take? Maybe C.J. Allen. You can see that. I think he's going to end up being a first-round pick. So we'll see. Chargers at number 26. Now, I had Vega Ioane. I'm actually going to keep that. Their interior offensive line is so bad. It's really awful. Really, their whole O-line right now is awful, but you're counting on getting Rashawn Slater back. You're counting on getting Joe Alt back, next year with both of those guys. Bradley Bozeman is horrendous at center, but there's no center to take here. Guard is upgradable. I just think you gotta protect Justin Herbert. And if you want to run the ball, you also need to upgrade the O-line. And again, Vega Ioane, I think, is quite a good fit for both of those. Rams at 27. I'm going to go Lenoir Sellers. Again, until he is officially back to school or transferring or whatever he's doing, I will consider him draftable here in these mock drafts. He's draft eligible, and he's played much better than you would think. The numbers are not great, and the South Carolina offense is a disaster. the play design, the offensive line, the receiver, it's all really bad. South Carolina, a mess right now. I think Sellers could be back in the QB1 conversation if he goes back to school and lights it up, because the tools are great. The arm, his accuracy is underrated. His deep ball accuracy is actually pretty good. And his sack avoidance, as we've talked about in this channel a lot, is simply incredible. Rams could use a quarterback for the future. I love Matt Stafford, but he can't play forever. So you get someone that doesn't need to play right away, can be developed for a year, but like truly developed for a year, because you're going to start Matthew Stafford, right? Sellers can actually just sit and learn what needs to happen, get the practice reps, and be a starter in 2027 or 2028 maybe. I don't know. But we've seen teams, take a quarterback, that may sit for 2 or 3 years in the case of Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, right? Same example with the Packers twice, but Sellers could end up being fantastic with Sean McVay, and the potential is fun. It really, really is. Patriots at 28, going Kenyon Sadiq, and it's just because he might be the best offensive player available, right? And you do have needs on the other side of the ball, and Hunter Henry, I think, is a really nice player, but you can go 12 personnel, and Hunter Henry, I think, is a free agent after 2026, so that's one more year after this one of Hunter Henry, potentially, who's going to be 33 at the time. Sadiq is awesome. Why does he fall? Well, he plays tight end. It's not necessarily the most valuable position, but at times he's been unbelievable this year. He can block. I think Vrabel's going to love a player like this. And of course, we've seen what New England Patriot tight ends can do. Well, I mean, on the football field, Gronk, one of the best ever. It would be fun to really get an awesome tight end back in New England. And Kenyon Sadiq is awesome. Eagles at 29. I think you could consider an edge. I mean, Cassius Howell is awesome, but really short arms, it could impact how high he goes in the draft. I absolutely could. I think they could opt to go with a corner here. Avion Terrell is an awesome player. May end up finding a home in the slot long term, so maybe you could swap these two picks here in division, but Terrell's awesome. I mean, he plays bigger than his size. He's only like 5'10". Brother, of course, of Avion Terrell, but he is really, really good. And like, I don't think he needs to be in the slot, right? You have a little bit of flexibility there. Eagles, I think, could use an upgrade on the back end. So Terrell makes sense to me here. Broncos at 30. Gonna go CJ Allen, linebackers in need. Like, I know this defense is great. Why not continue to, build into a good thing? I think they could use help on offense, but just the players don't align here for the Broncos, in my opinion. Unless maybe you go with like a KC Concepcion, like some type of field stretcher in here. I think Chris Brazzell could be in play for the same reasons. But I'm going to go CJ Allen. I think he's definitely a first-round caliber player, and the Broncos get a good one at 30. Seattle at 31. I might just go with another corner here. Like, there are some good ones available. D'Angelo Pons is awesome, but he's really small, and he's probably only going to be a slot. So I would say, think about D'Angelo Pons, in the same way you may have with, like, a Clark Phillips a couple of years ago, but is great. I think Will Lee could end up being a first-rounder, but is not necessarily quite the player that, Colton Hood is, or Keith Abney. Chris Johnson even has had a great season for San Diego State. I'm going to go Colton Hood here. I think he's a good fit for this Mike McDonald defense. And again, I know your defense is amazing, but keep building into a good thing. Similarly to the way we had the Broncos with CJ Allen. And I just don't know that there's a guard or center here worth taking. I don't know that the Seahawks would. But, I mean, again, Basantis is quite a good player. I mean, Emmanuel Pregnon, I could see being a top 50 pick. He's been really, really good this year. But we're going to go Colton Hood. To finish out this mock draft with the New York Jets, probably not going to be a corner based on the way the board has fallen for them. I had Amori Washington on Twitter. I am going to go Cassius Howell. just because I think he's a great player. A little bit undersized, but you can use him initially as a rotational pass rusher. And I think for the same reasons that you may have liked Will McDonald, you may like Cassius Howell. I recognize it's going to be a different regime there now, but Will McDonald not locked in long term. You still have Jermaine Johnson, but I still think you could use more off the edge, especially get that rotation going. And again, it's a new regime. I don't think you're attached to Will McDonald long term, and you might just need to go best player available on a defense that could really use the help. Cassius Howell might be the best player available. So that is the mock draft here today. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.